All right, guys, let's get going. So we saw on the first three examples that we wanted to cross multiply and solve that. Some of you said, "Well, I've heard of doing the bow tie method before," and that works really great uh, for the simple ones. But why learn a method that only works for the simple ones when you can just do cross multiplying? It works for all of them. So when you get to problems like this one, where your proportion or your equal fractions, maybe have something a little bit more complicated on either the numerator or the denominator. The process is still the same. You're still going to think, okay, well, it's a fraction equal to a fraction. I'm going to cross multiply. Bottom times top. Bottom times top. 5 times 7, 35. But when I multiply 6 times x plus 3, what am I doing? Now, x and 3 can't be added together. They're not like terms. One's an x and one's a 3. Okay. Not plus 3, but plus 6x plus 18. It's like distributive property there. And then we get this nice little multi-step equation or 2 steps to solve from there. So the first step in solving the blue equation would be what? Minus 18 from 35. These cancel out. 35 minus 18 is how much? 17. And then we divide by 6 and reduce that fraction if possible. This one doesn't, so it's 17 over 6. That's the final answer for that. Okay, so not much more difficult there. I mean, it's still cross multiplying. We just got to remember it's distributive property that we have to do. Okay. Look at the next one. What if we had something like this? 13 over 8 equals 11 over 2n plus 7. Is that still a proportion? Well, it's still a fraction on one side equal to a fraction on the other side. That's what a proportion is fraction equal to a fraction. So, yeah, it still is. So, how are we going to solve it? How have we solved every example so far? Cross multiply. That's not changing. One side, we have 88 on it. 8 times 11. The other side, 2n plus 7 times 13. What is that? What are you doing? Distributive property. So 13 times 2, 26. 13 times 7, 91. 70 plus 21. And then we solve that equation the way we already know how. Okay? So what would be my next step? Subtract 91. 26n equals how much? Negative 3. Divide by 26. Get that fraction. Negative 3 over 26. Doesn't reduce. So no matter where the variable's at, it's still the same process. Cross multiply. Bottom times top. Bottom times top. Distribute if needed. Say we had 15 over 7 equals 8 over 5x minus 4. Is that a proportion? Still a proportion. Still cross multiply. 8 times 7 is 56, and then we're going to distribute 15 to 5x minus 4. 15 times 5. 75x. 15 times negative 4. 40 plus 20 would be 60. Okay, and now what? Add it to the 56. 75x equals 116. Last step. Divide by 75. Try to reduce that if possible. 116, it's not divisible by 3 or 5. It's divisible by 2, but 75 is not, so it doesn't reduce. Get that as an answer. Okay. Not too bad, not too bad. Go back to an easy one. 6 over 15 on one side and 8 over x on the other one. Is that a proportion? It's a fraction on one side and a fraction on the other side. Yeah, so it is a proportion. So you cross multiply. One side is going to have 6x. What's the other side going to have? 120, yeah. Then we do what? Divide by 6. Yeah. And x is 20. Yeah, good job. We're a little bit more difficult. What do we do on this one? Cross multiply. It's a proportion. So on one side, we've got 2 times x, which is 2x. What's on the other side? Minus 18. So now we have this equation. It's got variables on both sides. That's what we did last week. Or the week before that. So how do I solve that? Minus the 3x to get all the x's together. The negative 1x is equal to negative 18. Divide by negative 1. X is 18. We're steadily getting into more difficult problems, but the process is still the same. 2m over 5. 3m minus 6 over 4. Is that a proportion? Yeah. So that means I'm going to cross multiply. What are the sides of my equation now? 8m, heard that, equals try again on the last part. 15m is correct, but it should be minus what? 30, because you got a 5 times 6. Now what do we do? Minus 15m. That's negative 30 left on that side. Negative 7 on the left side. Divide by negative 7. And what do we get as an answer? Positive or negative? Negative divided by negative does make it turn to a positive. Good job. All right, toughest one. Or maybe it's the toughest, I don't know. X minus 5 over 2x plus 3 is equal to 5 over 4. Here the x's are both on the same side. But is it a proportion? Is it a fraction equal to a fraction? Yes. So that means how we're going to solve it. Cross multiply the same way we've solved every problem so far. So on one side, what are we going to have? 4x minus 20 on one side. What would the other side be then? 10x plus 15. Okay. Doesn't matter which side you put that on. And then what? All right. I like minusing the 4x. That's a good idea. It'd be 6x plus 15. Subtract 15. Be negative 35 is equal to 6x. And then what? Divide by the 6. Yeah, that doesn't reduce, does it? And we've solved that proportion. Every time. Cross multiply. Get x by itself. Very much the same every single time. Okay? All right. Some questions about, especially that last one. Looks like we're doing really, really hard stuff, but once you do the cross multiplying, it's back to the same stuff we've been doing for about 3-4 weeks now. Solving equations. That's all it is. Okay? All right, so this is what I want you to work on for the rest of the time today on page 165, 7 through 17, odd, 31 through 41, odd, and then number 45 and 51. Okay? You don't have to copy the proportion down like out of the book, but if you'll get me that, start at your first step after you've cross multiplied. If you want to do it that way, you can. If it helps you to copy it down, that's not a problem either. Some of you might feel better doing that. And then on page 171, let's do 3 through 29 odd, and then 33 and 34. Okay, so we got 2 sections that we did today. We just did them the same style of solving. Okay, the first section is the really easy problems. The second section is the more difficult ones. Okay, so we just put them together because none of them are that difficult. Okay, so that's what I want you working on for the rest of the time today. Let's not move desk other than maybe Miss Sandy's folks, but everybody else kind of working by yourself for the rest of the time today, and then we'll look at working together maybe the next couple of days on some extra practice with this. We're going to do percentages later this week, and we're going to do them very much the same way. So we're going to talk about percentages as we go this week. So that's what I got you working on, and then we'll go from there for the rest of the week. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Yes.